Hello, everyone. Tony here, and welcome to another Expert Media Webinars. How's everyone doing? I'm glad that you're here, and we'll get underway shortly. But I just wanted to check in. Question for you. Did any of you lose cell phone or internet service today, wherever you live? We were knocked out for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. Both our cable, cell phones, everything was gone for a minute. And nobody said anything about it, but I thought it was just kind of odd that it would vanish like that. But fortunately, it came back. Otherwise, we wouldn't be chatting right now. So it might have been an East Coast thing or a local area thing or whatever. Some of you are saying not that you know of or where you were. So I guess that's a good thing. Can you imagine if cable and the internet and cell phones all went down simultaneously across the entire country? That would make life interesting, to say the very least. Anymore, who knows with what's going on in the world today? Who knows what's next? But anyway, I'm glad you're here and doing okay and everything. So let me go full screen here and do a proper introduction for tonight. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Expert Media Webinars. This is your host and teacher, Tony Bodig, and welcome to tonight's training. We are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, buy low, sell high. And by the way, if you hear noise in the background, that's cars driving by. My office is really hot, and so I opened up the window to try to cool things down. So I apologize for background noise, but I don't think you want to see me like stripped down either. Don't want to traumatize anybody. But anyway, so we're going to talk a little bit about this because as I've talked to and interacted with different people locally and in webinars and friends on Facebook and all of that, I've noticed a consistent theme regarding selling products, whether they're digital or physical. And even with crafters, especially probably with crafters, I've noticed this issue in one form or another. And so I thought I would just kind of clear the air a little bit regarding this concept, especially because Kristen and I have a lot of experience in buying and selling, both digitally, online, and with physical products in a lot of different forms. So I have a couple case studies that I prepared just to show you. I guess my goal here is to show you how we think when it comes to business building, product creation, all of those kinds of things. And hopefully it will help you as well. So that said, Warren Buffett once said, "A simple rule dictates my buying. Be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful." And from that statement that he made came the idea of buy low, sell high. And of course, at one point, it was mostly with regard to the stock market, but it actually applies to any type of business, whether you're selling online or offline. Whether you're in the crypto space or NFTs or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It literally applies to anything. And what I found with regard to this idea of buy low, sell high is that there are two things that are vital to the success of any business. That's supply and demand and margin. And supply and demand is an interesting animal because you may find something that people really want, but you don't have the supply. Same with maybe you have the supply and there's just no demand. And then, of course, margin is simply you wanting to hopefully make money whenever you do have transactions. And so, uh, supply and demand tells us what people are buying or not, and especially demand. And of course, I always advocate researching your own areas of interest, uh, because it's a good place to begin with. And I don't think I've ever personally created any products or anything like that just because I heard that it was selling really well or whatever. Like I've heard a lot of different things that were selling really well, but if it wasn't in my area of expertise or things that I was interested in, I usually just didn't pay attention. Like if somebody told me today, dude, you need to get into heavy machinery because you can buy it for pennies on a dollar and then flip it for tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, I think it'd be kind of badass to drive around, a front end loader or digger or whatever, but I have no desire to buy and sell heavy machinery. Same with like golf clubs and all of that. I mean, I know people who do it and do really well, but I really could care less, and like even in certain areas of the digital online space, there's topics out there that you'll never hear me teach on just because I don't care. They just don't do it for me. And so they're not going to have my attention. And so it's not a good idea to focus on areas that seem to be in high demand if you're not knowledgeable or interested in that market. Now, if it is something that you may be interested in, but you are clueless, then become a student. It's amazing what you can learn, either through a good teacher or just by paying attention to people who are already doing what you want to do. And I mean, that's how I learned. And plus I also learned by a lot of experimentation. And so what I found with the whole supply and demand dynamic is that you want to identify the demand first and then the supply, not the other way around. You may find a whole lot of supply for whatever it might be, and then later you find out why, because there's no demand for it. I mean, can you imagine trying to start up a business today selling Beanie Babies? Who cares? Nobody cares about Beanie Babies anymore, or Boyd's Bears. My word, you could buy boxes full of them at an auction for pennies on the dollar, but the original purchaser paid a premium. Nobody cares. So lots of supply, no demand. And then on the flip side, there are some things that there's a lot of demand for, and there's just no supply. And usually, what I found is, at least in our own experience over the last 7 years, is that whenever you have heavy demand and limited supply, you can make a boatload of money, but it's never a consistent thing. It's basically like surges of waves. That it comes and goes, it ebbs and flows, and sometimes, like one of the things that we discovered, is that we had a lot of supply because we thought the demand was there, and then the way, as we started to try to sell it, the demand just dried up, and so we were left, you know, holding the bag, so to speak, with a lot of product. But yet now the demand is through the roof. So we just set on it for a couple of years, and in some cases sent a bunch of products to auction and stuff like that just to kind of recoup some of our money, which actually we did really well with that. But it's really important to understand that process, and then of course along with that you must pay attention to margin. There's a lot of folks that I've met over the years, especially crafters and makers and folks like that, but not just. People who flip collectibles or all kinds of things. And so they get things at an auction and they bid things up, or, they buy it because they have to have it, or, they create that craft market and yet, or craft item. And sure, they're making sales and everything, but for what their price is and what they're selling it for, they're barely making any money. And in some cases, they're losing money. I mean, I've had a conversation with my daughter fairly recent about that because she consigns to our store and she makes a lot of jewelry. She has her own business with that. And it's like, you got to raise your prices. You're charging too little. Well, it only cost me $1 or 2 to make it. So I figured, $5 would be a fair price. Yeah, except people would pay 10. You're undercharging. You're making less than 100% margin. And a lot of people don't understand that, because, especially makers, because they don't factor in the cost of producing something. Like, even if you're buying products that are already made and you're just putting them in packaging or whatever, there's still cost involved. Even if it takes you a minute, you should know what that minute is worth to you. And we'll break all that down here in a little bit. But margin is a big deal because that's where the money is. That's where you make money. So there's a number of questions that I kind of go through in my mind, and you really want to discover the answer to these. They're really important. I mean, you'll have access to the slides, of course, but this is like noteworthy. Okay, so what is already selling related to your interest? What are you interested in? For us, we seem to have interest in a lot of things. Currently, it changes, mostly because we get bored with stuff sometimes. But like for us, my wife and I, the collectibles market has always been an interest of ours. And so as a result, over the last 7 years, we have been constantly selling collectibles in many different forms, and still are, in a lot of ways. And so, that's one area of interest for me personally, and for Kristen. I mean, we have a nerd store that sells collectibles, so I mean, that should kind of clear it up. But I also like knives and EDC type products. I like rustic jewelry. I like Viking related stuff. Just a lot of different things like that. Those are areas of interest that I have. And so then if you see something that you're interested in, and with some research, you recognize that it is selling, why? Why is it selling? What's the psychology behind it? Why are people drawn to it? Is it a fad like the popper things are right now? Is it related to a movie or a TV show? Is it something completely different? Like, it's really important to understand why something is selling, because if you don't know, you're going to completely miss the process. You're going to blow it from a buying perspective, and you'll likely blow it from a selling perspective, or you'll overstay your welcome, so to speak. So, whenever the trend goes away, if you don't gauge your inventory right, if you're selling physical products, then you're going to be stuck with a whole lot of stuff that you can't move. Same is true in the digital marketing space. I see people still trying to teach courses on coloring books and stuff. Like, the whole coloring book trend died in 2016, 17, right in that area, or shortly after. It wasn't it lasted maybe a year. And so people are trying to say that there's still money in coloring books. Yeah, if you have F-bombs in it, maybe, because snarky phrases seem to be about the only thing that's selling. A simple search on Amazon will tell you that. And so it's like, why are you teaching this? Why are you producing courses on this? It makes zero sense to me. Keep up with what's coming down the pike, like artificial intelligence. That's a big deal, and that's getting ready to explode next year. I mean, I've been teaching a lot on it over the last 18 months. The only reason why we've looked at it as much as we have is because of the amount of research that I do. Within days of a new program hitting the market, I'm using it and teaching on it. Most of the world don't even know that half of these software programs exist yet. And so as a result, like, my word, some of the like text to art stuff, there's only maybe 3 apps available on the entire internet right now. Next year, there's probably going to be 100. You mark my words. But anyway, I digress. So the next question that you want to ask yourself is, how long has this thing been selling, or how long has it been trending? Now, there's some things, like if you get into the collectible space, there's stuff that's been selling and trending for years. We have really good friends of ours, the husband and wife, and the wife has been an ongoing employee of ours. She isn't officially working for us now unless we have like a special event, and then she'll come in and work. But she asked to not work so she could focus more on her business. And what their primary business is, they're selling a certain type of dishware. And they sell in a number of different places, including a local antique mall. But I mean, they're just locally here, they're doing over $1,000 a month every month at a place that really doesn't get a lot of traffic. And for just selling dishes, plates, and bowls and stuff like that, it's crazy. I mean, it's just amazing. And they've been selling that stuff for as long as we've known them, which is, 6, 7, 8 years. And so sometimes you'll find that certain things trend better than others. And not only that, what we found is that they'll trend in one area and sell better in one area compared to another. Like, just because something is selling extremely well on the East Coast doesn't mean that it will on the West Coast. So that's why it's important to pay attention to even where you are. Now, internet is completely different animal, of course. Now, another really, really important question to ask yourself is, are there related products that are similar, same, or in multiple categories? And this is where you can really expand a business in a very positive way. Whether it's a maker-based business, you're making your own stuff, whether you're reselling, whether you're like in the antiques market or collectibles market or toys or whatever. Like a really good example is, say, Star Wars, right? Star Wars collectibles. So with Star Wars collectibles, of course, you have the current action figures that are nearly impossible to get, even with wholesale accounts. You got 6-inch figures, you got 3 3/4-inch figures, you have vintage figures, you have different manufacturers, you got comic books, you have secondary merchandise that has like Star Wars characters on it, like mugs and cups and crazy stuff like that nobody cares about. And on it goes. And so it's something that you want to know and understand. And then also, what are the price points and the margins? Like, where are you finding your products, whatever those are? Or if you're making them, what are you charging, or what can you charge? What's a consistent price point in your market? And based on how you're acquiring what it is you're selling, what kind of margin can you get? I mean, if supply isn't a problem and you're buying something either through a wholesale place, or you're making it, or you're getting it through auctions or whatever, but the selling price is 20% higher than what you just paid for it, it's not worth your while. It's so crazy to me where, like, I'm not a fan of yard sales to sell at anyway. Buying is another story, but to sell it like a yard sale, for instance, it always kind of I always find it kind of entertaining to see people celebrate because they made $200 in a day selling goods that they no longer use, but originally paid like $500 for them. It's like, what in the world's wrong with you? you know? I mean, give it away and take a tax deduction. You'd make out better. But, it's like, well, I paid, $300 for this mixer, but I'm happy to sell it to you for 50 bucks. And then they're happy about the $50. Like, I don't understand that at all. That makes no sense to me. And another question, of course, that you want to ask yourself is, where's it selling, this product that you have, and how many competitors are you, or are there, that are selling something similar or something the same? And what are their price points? That's a really important one. And so just because you have competitors doesn't mean that you should charge less. It's one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make on a very regular basis, online and offline. If there's competition, then all of a sudden they feel like they have to lower their price so that they can compete somehow. You can never compete on price, ever. If you have competitors and they're selling what you're selling, raise your prices. Don't lower them, raise them. Why? That doesn't seem to make sense. That seems counterintuitive. It's psychology. If people see that you're charging a higher price, they may not always buy from you, but they think, oh, they must have a better quality, XYZ. They must know something I don't know, or whatever. And so as a result, it sets a different precedent. And of course, you will attract a different level of clientele than if you're selling cheap. If you're selling cheaper, people will often look at your product and wonder what's wrong with it. Is it cheap? Is it just a knockoff of something else or whatever? And depending on what you're selling, especially like in the collectibles market, there are knockoffs. There's scams and everything, of course. But that goes back to knowing and understanding your market. And then probably the biggest question, and one that most people have a hard time answering, is, who is your customer exactly? Is it male or female? Men or women? What's the average age group? Are you selling to 20 and 30 somethings? Are you selling to 50 and 60 somethings, or somewhere in between? Depending on the kind of product that you're selling, are they dog people or cat people? Where do they live? What do they drive? Now, some of this you can't necessarily zero in on, but it's important to understand who your customer is, because how on earth can you customize a sales message or marketing or anything like that if you have no idea who you're selling to? And so it's important to pay attention to that. Now, let's talk a little bit about margin. This is probably, to me, one of the more important parts of it, because that's where you make the money. The money is in the margin. So margin is your selling price for goods minus the acquisition cost for those goods. And the acquisition costs include a lot of things. Of course, you have the cost of the goods themselves, whether you're making it yourself, or you're buying something wholesale, or you're white labeling, or you're creating courses, or whatever the case may be. I mean, courses have cost. The cost that I have to run these webinars multiple days a week, they're, they would make you stop and think, probably, for what I pay. I mean, there's probably cheaper ways to doing it, but I'm pretty heavily invested in managing 200 courses. There's not a lot of programs out there that can do that. And so that all factors in the cost of goods sold. It takes me time to and research to prepare these webinars, but I have the presentation software that I have to pay for. I have StreamYard, which is broadcasting it live right now, to pay for, my computer, my microphone, all of those different things, the monthly storage fees, the software that runs the membership area, all of that stuff, counts into cost of goods. If you're selling physical products and you're doing shipping, what are those costs? If there's packaging involved, whether it's boxes to ship stuff out, or packing paper, or labels, or those kinds of things, or if you're manufacturing your own products, how are you presenting them? All of that plays in. And then there's the labor, which is this is probably the biggest fail area of them all. People never consider what it costs them. Well, I mean, it took me only an hour or so, but they're selling, the widget or whatever for $10. Well, what are you paying yourself? $1 an hour, you know? And so I see this especially with makers who really don't understand their value, or they have a poor self-image or whatever. I don't, whatever the reason is. But you see them selling stuff, and it's like, I'll give you a real world today kind of example. So Kristen and I went to one of the antique markets that we used to have booths at. We had 4 booths there. It's the first retail kind of adventure that we started, and we did extremely well with it. The only reason why we stopped is because we opened Toy Box. If I could go back in time, I would have never made that move. We actually did better with the antique booths. But as we were walking around, we found this one display case, and there was a guy there who had 3D printed characters. He had Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd. He had characters from Alice in Wonderland, and these things were like, 8, 9 inches tall, maybe. So he focused a lot on classic cartoon characters. So he had Fred and Wilma, and the whole gang. Dino was there. He had the Jetsons. He had Alice in Wonderland. He had Snow White, and these are like multi-piece assembled 3D printed objects that he had to assemble together, glue together. They were vapor treated to smooth out the printing, because they were obviously printed using filament. And the price points were insane. Like, I got the Elmer Fudd, he's like holding his gun, and the gun is all separate, his arms are all separate, everything is separate. It's literally full color, looks amazing, and it was like $26. And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at Kristen. There was a lot. We could have bought most of the display thing. I'm looking at Kristen. I'm like, how is this dude covering his cost at $26? Like, the filament has to cost almost that much, plus the time to print it all out on a 3D printer, and then the time to smooth it out and then assemble all the pieces together. $26. Like, damn, this is a no-brainer. We're buying this stuff. It's going home. And we don't need more stuff, trust me. But we didn't buy it just because it's a good deal. I mean, come on, it's Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny. Need I say more? But anyway, I mean, it was just surprising to me. Like, the guy totally is not making money on these things that he's selling. They're awesome. They look great. But there's no way he's making much money, if any. And I don't know. It's too bad, because he's doing a really good job with it. And then marketing cost, whether you're running paid ads or putting together flyers or, skywriting, whatever the case may be, that all factors in as well. And, so there's real cost involved. You can see here, this is one of our dice orders. I think it's our last dice order, or one of the last ones. This one is from 2020, from one of the companies that we buy from in China. And the shipping actually wasn't that bad, because we didn't have it shipped air. Or maybe we did. No, I don't think we did. No, I guess we probably did, because we bought dice, but they don't actually weigh that much. And so it took, they shipped within 12 days. Shipping was only $225. And so, like, we had the total product price of $789, but you also have to include the shipping. Right? So it's all part of the process, of course. And a lot of people, they think, oh, well, yeah, I got these and they only cost me $789. And we got however many pieces there were. And so, my cost per goods is, 789 divided by the quantity, however, whatever the quantity was. And like, no, it's not that. It's, you have to include the shipping as well. Somebody's got to pay for it, right? So why not pass that cost on to your customers? All right. So having a good margin, which a good margin, by the way, I consider over 200%, ensures that not only will you make a profit selling retail, whether it's through a website or in festivals and shows or whatever, but if you want to take the step into wholesale where you get to sell one to many, like retailers, you need to have enough margin to offer them a discount to buy. Now, you can require that they buy in quantity, whatever that looks like or needs to look like for you. But if you have 100% margin and then you give them a 50% discount for wholesale or 40% or whatever, that's not really leaving you with a lot more or a lot of money. The object of the game here is to not break even. It's to actually profit extremely well. I mean, why else do it? Just because you love it? That will take you only so far. And so a couple of the I thought I would include a couple of the wholesale sites. I've shared these before, but these are ones that we buy from: Fair, Tundra, Bound, Olympia, Create, which actually we don't buy from them, but they're still worth paying attention to, and Stockable. And for the stuff that we've been developing for Magical Bear, we are putting on Fair. Fair's number one out of the group, and they're doing a lot of things right. We buy a lot from Fair for our store, and the vendors, for our experience, has been that the vendors have just been great. In essence, you're supporting small businesses, and I'm a huge, massive fan of that, supporting small business. And so this is a screenshot. I just logged in today, some of the brands that we already buy from and support. And there's a lot more. We buy a lot of different kinds of things, but it's kind of cool because like this isn't the kind of stuff you could get through a big wholesale account somewhere. It just would be cost prohibitive even for the makers to do it. And so to be able to support small businesses, I mean, we're a small business, so to be able to support them and bring attention to their products and all of that is a win-win to me. Now, I thought what I would do just to kind of demonstrate the thought process behind like how we approach product creation and pricing and all of that kind of stuff. I put together a couple case study cost analysis examples. And the first one is my Goddess prints. And you may remember, some of you have likely seen these in one form or another. It's a photo composite made using an AI output from Artbreeder and then composited in Photoshop. And I've been printing them on Red River Pearl Metallic paper. And I'm currently working on a deal to do a showing with these and some other AI-based art. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, I've been selling these art prints in our store and at shows and stuff like that, and they're doing pretty well. But just to give you an idea of production cost, the Polar Gloss Metallic is what I'm using, 78 cents a sheet. The ink for my Canon Pro 100, the cost per print, which Red River was kind enough to break that down. So like for full coverage with an 8x10, the cost for the ink is 88 cents. And then I also put them in the clear polypropylene sleeves. And for 8x10, they are 8 cents a piece. There's also a chipboard insert, 8x10, that is 5 cents a piece. I think we get all of these at Uline, those particular parts. And then, of course, the labor, I have $10 an hour only because we have employees doing it. It's much more expensive for me to do that. But it takes about a minute to assemble them, so that works out to 16 cents, which isn't a lot. And so total production cost on these is $1.95. The selling price, as you can see on the website and at the shows and everything in the store, is $19.99, which means that I'm making a net profit of $18.04, or a 925% return on investment. So that's what I'm talking about for margin. It's pretty awesome. I mean, my time creating the original design isn't factored into that. That would be a lot harder to amortize that over, number of sales. But, and that took about an hour. But even still, that said. Next is a bear necklace. This is a project that we're working on right now. The cost of the bear necklace is $1.05. That's on Alibaba. To get it through AliExpress, it's about $1.20. And it comes in 3 different colors. They cost about the same. And then the shipping from Alibaba, they have a minimum order quantity. And based on that minimum order quantity, the shipping is 57 cents a piece. And then they normally come in like these little cellophane baggy type things. And I found that some vendors just put the jewelry out, like whenever they're selling the jewelry, they'll just put it out like that. That isn't how I work. Whenever you're selling products, you want people to have an enjoyable experience. It should be telling a story in some form or another. I've talked about this before, but just like how Apple handles all of their products, it's an experience. And so you want to give your customer that same feeling. They remember, and very often they'll come back because of that experience. And so one of the things that we're doing with these is we're getting craft jewelry boxes. I love earth tones. And so craft paper, the brown, I really like a lot. They're 37 cents a piece. And then we're also having a custom packaging sleeve made, which will slip over the box and it'd be full color printed. And so, it'll have like the necklace or whatever. So just kind of adds to the visual appeal. And then to assemble them together, 32 cents, a couple minutes. And so the total cost for this particular project is $244. And there's a lot more that we're doing with jewelry. We're getting ready to move into that in a much bigger way. But I decided to go with this because it's very reminiscent of my Magical Bear logo. And I thought it was kind of cool. So total cost $244. We're probably going to aim the selling price at $24.99. Just because it should be an easy sell at that price point. And so the net profit is going to be $22.55 with a 9.24x margin, 924%. You might notice a consistent theme that I'm aiming for is high margins. But see, here's the thing. Even at a $24.99 price point, if I cut that price in half to sell wholesale, I'm still making $10 per sale in net profit. And, that ain't bad. It's still, 400%, give or take. So, pretty good deal. Now, An optional approach that we're weighing out is that, depending on where we're selling, like the jewelry boxes and everything is going to be attractive and it'll be cool and all of that. But sometimes retail stores want to hang necklaces. And so I also priced out a hang tag that has like the little, they call them sombrero hooks or holes, punch, because they're like long and narrow and then they have like a loop in the middle. So kind of looks like a sombrero. But they hang on those little metal hooks. And because some stores would rather sell them that way, I could take matching art from the packaging sleeve, have hang tags made. They're 57 cents a piece. And so that way I could display them two different ways. All right. So one more, our dice. I showed you the screenshot earlier from April and Gang, who we buy our dice from. And we buy quite a few products from that company. Most of our branded products all come from one company, and we've been dealing with them for 4 years probably. So this is a screenshot from our website, from our Nerd Unscripted website. And so the production costs on these, one set, 7-piece set of polyhedral plain or glitter dice is $1.62. These dice, by the way, are for like tabletop games, RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. And we sell a boatload of them. We sell them in a clear tube packaging. It's 38 cents. We were initially selling them in a clamshell type package that was larger, and we found that people didn't like those as much, and they took up more space on the hooks. And so we switched to clear tube packaging, and it very much streamlined the end process. And then we have a dice bag. It's a little velvet bag that holds the dice and a foam insert so that the dice are kind of protected. The foam insert is on the bottom. The dice bag is in the top inside the tube. So the dice are held very securely in place. But the dice bag and foam insert together cost 25 cents. And then to label the tubes with our logo and what kind of dice it is and all of that, we have stickers that we use for that. And I think we're getting those printed through Sticker Giant right now. And those come from 15 cents. That's what we're paying. And then we're using custom barcodes on these so that they can be scanned. That's one thing, by the way. I didn't include it in the pricing of the other two examples, but if you want to sell on Fair, especially, or sell in retail, they need a barcode to scan. Now, in many cases, retail places can add them themselves, especially if they have barcode printers and stuff like that. We do. But it makes life a lot easier for them if you provide your products with barcodes already on them. That requires buying the barcodes and all of that. We're not going to get into all of that today, but it is part of the process. And then assembly label for putting the foam and the dice and the dice bag and everything in the tube and putting on the sticker is 10 cents. Not a lot. And so the total cost for production on these is $2.76. And we're selling them for $9.95. And we could probably push the price to $12.95. But we have a decent amount of competition in the area. And so we took a median price. We're not the lowest. We're not the highest. And even in selling at $9.95, we're still getting a 260% return, which gives us margin to sell them wholesale. And still, do okay with it. We make wholesale, $350, $360 Actually, I think wholesale we make $4, if I remember the spreadsheet, because we have all this in spreadsheet. That's kind of how we keep track of things. Not because I'm like, you know, a hardcore on spreadsheets. It's because Kristen is. She's awesome at spreadsheets. I am not. But we have everything, like all the costs and everything is just laid right out in the spreadsheet. And so, with the little calculators that you can build into spreadsheets and everything, it's very, very easy to calculate all those prices and stuff automatically. So one of the things that I thought I would share with you, and if you have any comments or questions, feel free to think about those and share them in the chat box. While you're thinking about that, one of the things I thought I'd share with you is some photos and screenshots of some of our different ventures that we've done. And we've been busy. The top two pictures are photos from our original antique booths. And we kind of went not so crazy with them because everything was like a white pegboard and painted concrete floors. And we just didn't like that. So you can see here in the first left-hand top picture, we literally created a toy store within the antique mall. We laid flooring, we built a display window with an awning, the whole 9 yards. And then we actually had 3 booths, and we did that with all 3. So we kind of went crazy. Part of what we were selling at the time was trains, vintage and newer templates and stuff like that. And a lot of vintage tin toys, Star Wars, gaming type stuff. And what's cool is that like the top booth here on the left, everything that you see in this picture, which you can't see everything that's in there, but all of that is gone. Like we sold it all. And I still have some of the trains just because I was unwilling to let them go, but pretty much everything else is gone, including the tree. This was actually a 1950s tinsel tree made out of aluminum. And we had somebody come up and offer to buy it from us. But he didn't want the ornaments, which were also for sale. So we had to undecorate the tree so we could sell him the tree. This is one of the latest antique booths that we had, which we no longer have. But this particular one, we were selling science supplies and dinosaurs and science kits and rocks and minerals and fossils and all kinds of stuff like that. And here's my bear, which he now lives in our family room downstairs. But this one, I love this one. It was so much fun. And this is me a couple months ago. This is a booth that we had set up at a local Comic-Con. And I'm smiling and look kind of handsome, but I was just coming off of pneumonia, so I didn't really feel that great. I didn't want to be there. I had an employee with me, which was helpful, but we did extremely well there. And then top right is one of the things we also like to do. We have a local rock hounding club or whatever you want to call it. And twice a year they put on rock shows, which I missed this fall. This was in the spring of this year that we went and set up. We took a couple of our smaller dinosaurs with us, and then we had a lot of the stuff that was left over from this booth. And again, I mean, we did really, really well with everything there. But I know that market. I mean, Chris and I go to the crystal shop pretty much every week and buy and sell. I mean, I'm buying them wholesale right now. I just bought, for those of you who know, in the metaphysical space, one of the popular things to sell is Palo Santo sticks, right? And normally you'll see them in a bundle of like 3. tied together in a nice little bow or something. And yeah, I've seen the bundles priced anywhere from $5 up to $18. And you'll also often see them available like a 4-inch stick for $1. Seems cheap enough, right? I bought 14 pounds of it for $140. And so those sticks are like 3 cents a piece. So, I mean, it's just when you understand and you follow what I shared earlier, it really can set you up for success. This is an outdoor presentation sale. I guess it was a local downtown event when we had our toy store, Toy Box. And this is Toy Box, a picture of Toy Box when we had it. Toy Box Guess and Wonder. This is a fairly recent photo of the inside of Nerdvana, the front room. And of course, we still have that, and it's doing extremely well. And this is the outside. This is there's an outdoor festival that we host every year. We've done it for a couple of years now, including this year, called Geek Fest. And hugely popular thing. So you can host your own events, or, having a retail store gives you a lot of benefits and events that you can do. We just had one this past weekend on Sunday. That's the picture from the lower right, where we did a Nightmare Before Christmas costume party and just invited the town and our regulars and all of that kind of stuff. And then we had a contest, we had food, all those things. And it was a lot of fun. I got in there and I was like, too many people for me. And so I left. And but it was very, very successful. And then sometimes we like to sell at auction, so we'll buy stuff. Maybe it's stuff that we aren't selling locally. Maybe we get it on a really good deal. I love to buy collections. We don't do that so much now, but we'll buy collections of toys and then send them to auction. And we do really well. This is one of our more recent visits to the one auction house that we use. You'll notice all of the skids with the pallet jack. This is all our stuff, and this isn't all of them. I think we had 6 pallets there. And out of those 6 pallets, we did $16,000, I think, in sales, something like that. This is a screenshot here in the middle bottom from the Etsy store that I had, which I've since closed, but I did that pretty well. My Magical Bear site, which is officially live now. We're still working on building a product, so we haven't really promoted it a lot. And then we have our Nerdvana Outpost website, which is huge. It has 3,500 SKUs, I think, on the site. And that's not everything that we sell in the store. So we have maybe 4,000 SKUs that we're selling. So Thomas says, I just had a real flop. Tell us about one of your disasters. Makes me feel good. We've had them, no doubt about it. Probably the biggest disaster, quote unquote, if you will, was our toy store, actually. We did really well with it from a selling perspective. The mistake that we made was that we paid our employees too much. Because we were coming off of the internet marketing space where, VAs charge $35, $50 an hour, and that's what we were paying. And so, to pay our employees $16 to $20 an hour just seemed appropriate for like managers and stuff. The only problem is that the store, plus the startup costs and the inventory and all of that, couldn't cover the expenses. And so by the time it was all said and done, the store was only open, I think, for 2 years. And as much as we enjoyed it and as much as the town loved it and whatever, the sales just couldn't even come close to handling the load. And so as a result, my business, my online business, kept it afloat as long as we could. And so I pumped a lot of money into it. Kristen pumped a lot of money into it because she was still teaching online then. And long story short, our first full retail venture, we lost $750,000. That's a disaster. In my book, anyway. I mean, $750,000 gone forever. Not my idea of a good time. Now, we were encountering similar problems at first with Nerdvana, and especially like 2019, we were averaging $5,000 a month in sales, maybe, and we had 2, 3, 4 employees working there, and the manager, and we had an administrator. They were both paid very well. We later found out that they weren't doing their job and all of that. But they ended up, both the two high earners ended up quitting because we found out that we caught them basically taking very, very long vape breaks and leaving the store unattended. And so we were going to have a come to Jesus talk with them. They kind of beat us to the chase. But anyways, 2 weeks after that, the COVID lockdowns happened. And so the store was physically closed for 3 months, 0 sales, except a tiny little bit online. And so we pretty much figured that it was over. Krista made the decision to focus on the store full time, to go in there every day, to build a website, and to see what we could do. And hats off to her for all the effort that she put into it, because we finished out 2020 2.5 times more sales than what we did in 2019 with being closed for 3 months. And so now our monthly averages are 12 to 15,000 a month is what we're doing at the store right now, compared to 4,000 and 5,000 before COVID. So 2019, we were doing 4,000 to 5,000 a month. Now, just to give you a comparison, what we're doing in Nerdvana now is what we did at the Toy Box. We were averaging 12 to 15 a month in Toy Box, but with all the overhead and everything and the amount of inventory that we had to maintain, it just didn't work. That's why we lost our shirts, we'll say. But now, we have 2 employees and a couple on standby that works for festivals and stuff. But they're young. One's 16 and one's 19. So they're very shapeable, they're very eager, and they're very good. The 16-year-old only works part-time. The 19-year-old works full-time, but she is a smarty pants. She's very sharp, very good. But, we pay them a much more appropriate wage for what they're doing. And as a result, the store is just skyrocketed. I mean, it's just doing really well. And we're very grateful for that. But we've had a couple of conversations where, we nearly closed it down after the COVID shutdown. And I'm glad that we didn't, because it's a lot of fun. We have regulars, people that are in there nearly every day. And some of the folks, I don't even know how they do it. They'll come in and they'll drop hundreds of dollars a week, every week. But now we have a higher end clientele who are like doctors and lawyers and stuff like that are also coming in, and they can afford to do that. But we just, through all the experiences, we've done a lot of things right with that store. And but still, probably out of a lot of the different ventures that we've experimented with, we probably made the most consistent money with our antique booths. especially the top ones here. When we had this set of booths where the bear is and everything, we had a total of 6, I think, 6 booths total in that particular marketplace. And we were only in there for 4 months, something like that. And then we had a major falling out with the owner of the building. But in that 4 months, we did 25 grand, I think, in sales in 4 months. So that didn't suck. That wasn't bad at all. We did really well. Now, here's what we're bumping into now, just to qualify things a little bit for the having a failed toy store and multiple booths that we no longer have in antique malls and everything. We have a lot of stuff because of the furniture requirements, the display cabinets and all that kind of stuff. We've gotten rid of a lot of it now, but my word, that is a hidden cost that you don't necessarily plan on, especially if you want to do it with excellence and make it look really attractive. I mean, we bought out like all the displays from a Hallmark store and different things like that just to get enough displays. But now we don't need most of them. And so we've been selling them off and giving them away and everything we could do to get rid of them. I mean, fortunately, we're down to 3 storage units, 2 10 by 20s and a 10 by 18. But my word, that's the kind of stuff you also have to factor in is, like if you're doing outside shows, you need pop-up tents, you need folding tables, you need chairs, tablecloths, those kinds of things. Those are all costs that factor in. Now, you can run it pretty lean because they're one-time expenses. So it's not like we're going out and buying displays every month, but like these little wooden ones that you see here that we had at the Comic-Con, we're using a lot of these. They're super inexpensive and they look really nice. And they fold up very, very easily. So they're very easy to, I guess we did use the trailer for this. We have a 10 by 18 trailer that we often use, but the Mercedes can hold a lot of stuff. And maybe we did just load all of it in the Mercedes. I forget. But anyway, I'm rambling. But anyway, don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to express. A couple of you were mentioning yard sales and selling it. Yeah, I mean, I've had 1 or 2 like 20 years ago, but it's not worth the effort. I mean, if you have a bunch of stuff that you no longer need or want to use, there's better ways of unloading it. And as a matter of fact, that's some of what we're going to be talking about in a new course that starts on Wednesday, tomorrow. Holy cow. Yeah, I'm going to be sharing 8 different strategies, different from what we talked about tonight. But 8 different strategies that we've used to move merchandise or move stuff that we no longer need or whatever. And we've done really well with all of them. And I'm going to break down all the details, how we approach it, how we research it, all of that kind of stuff. And it works whether you want to get into buying and selling or if you just are looking to unload a bunch of stuff that you have that you no longer need. It just works in a lot of different ways. And yeah, so that's what we're going to be covering. That'll be Income Reboot Quick Cash, the name of that course. You probably see me talking about it. We are going to be mailing on it again in the morning, just so that everybody's aware. There's a bunch of folks that have already jumped in, of course, but it's going to be a good time. I'm excited to share this because it's something that you can get started with. You could like pick any one of the 8 strategies that we're using and literally get started the next day. That's what I like about these. There's no big, long, drawn out, expensive things that you got to do. You can get started with them right away and they just work because we've done them all for a few years. So Anyway, does anybody else have any comments or questions? And by the way, I think the website incomereboot.com/quick, I think is what it is. My accomplice account. I've been playing with science fiction space stuff lately. Yeah, that's it. Quick. Right. Yeah. So it's $67. The price point is just because there's 4 modules plus 3 really cool bonus trainings on buying. If you want to buy to flip, like what we were talking about some tonight. But it's going to be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. And the only reason why you might have noticed the schedule, if we scroll down here, November 10th and 11th. So Wednesday and Thursday this week, Wednesday and Thursday next week. The only reason why I did that is because Thanksgiving is the following week. And I really didn't want to teach on Thanksgiving Eve because that's when we're having our Thanksgiving with my kids. So that's why I stacked it up the way I did. So we could get it done quickly in 2 weeks, and then you can get out and start selling stuff. Jared says, I'm excited about the class. Yeah, I'm excited to share the stuff. The more I dig into putting together the PowerPoints and stuff, the more excited I get. And Liz says, I've been getting rid of crap for the last few months, and it's so freeing. So I'm excited about the class mañana. Yeah, Kristen has been in a hardcore downsizing thing because we have our play space, which is a 2-story, 24 by 36 foot garage, technically. We had a car in it for a brief period of time. My Mustang lived there for a little while, but there's no cars in it now. There's a pottery and stained glass studio in there, and there's a woodworking area and a leatherworking area. There is the entire upstairs was miniatures and where my glow forge and 3D printers and all that is. But we've been downsizing a lot because I don't know if I think I mentioned this before, but our goal and our plan is to go full-time RV. We want to buy a fifth wheel and a big truck and hit the road in a year and a half or so. And so as a result, we're in the process of taking 5,000 square feet of stuff in our house and our garage 2-story and our 3 storage units and trying to liquidate most of it. And so what I'm going to be teaching in these classes are like real world instances of what we're literally doing right now. But we've also been doing it for months. So we know what we're doing, which is good. We don't have to figure it out because we've been doing it. Kristen was there today out there and with our housekeeper, and they were clearing up her pottery studio. And so anyway, I digress. Leslie asks, are you going to sell your place? We haven't decided yet. We're leaning toward yes. Because, well, it's too big for either of my girls, and I don't think they could afford it. I'm not going to give it to them, but I don't think they could afford to buy it. And plus, we have a lot of equity in the house. So the idea of being a landlord and renting it to somebody, that just doesn't seem appealing to me. So yeah, we're probably going to sell it, and we're looking at selling our store as well. And we have a couple people who have expressed some interest, so we'll see. Yeah, we're looking forward to it as well, Liz. We've um, we've been doing our homework, and we gave ourselves enough time so that we can prepare properly without having to rush, because it has its own learning curve. I mean, because we've been in retail, we've been locked into our area for 4 years, almost 5 years, and so we're ready to get out of Dodge, man. We'll be in all of the states. And one of the things that I'm planning to do as we start to travel is whenever we're into an area or heading into an area, we want to have like meetups and stuff, just hang out with people, hang out with you guys. Because I think that'd be fun as anything. And there's a lot of areas that we want to go in and spend maybe a month or two and just check out what's there. I mean, it's one thing to go visit on vacation for a few days, or you're speaking at an event and you add a couple days to go check something out. It's another thing to spend a month there. You really get to know an area. So, and there's some places I've never been. And so we're ready to fly like a bird. But a lot needs to happen before that can take place. So anywho, what's really cool is that we've been structuring our businesses other than the store, like Magical Bear and some of our newer ventures that I'm not quite ready to talk about yet, and my online training and all of that. Like that can work about as mobile as you can get. Um, like even Magical Bear shipping physical goods, we already have that figured out. So we can do that from anywhere. So it's going to be a good time. I'm excited. Yeah, I understand, Liz. I'm with you. I know exactly what you're talking about. And at the time we thought that having retail business would be fun and cool, and honestly it was. But Kristen and I went from this, like, even before we got together, we were both on a regular speaking circuit. And like I was home in Pennsylvania maybe 10 days out of the month. And so we were all over the country all the time for one reason or another. And, if we wanted to take a cruise, we could, or do whatever. And all of that came to a screeching halt whenever we opened up our retail store. Because, like, even the antique booths, you can leave them and they have employees that take care of the stuff. So you just collect money. But with retail, it's very hands on. And honestly, I would not recommend anybody going to retail at this stage of the game, unless you have an extra 100 grand sitting around that you're ready to burn, with the possibility of losing it all. I wouldn't do it. There's a lot of other avenues that you can take to give you the retail experience, like the festival and show market, different things like that, rather than retail, antique malls, art festivals, all of that kind of stuff. Retail is just super expensive, especially depending on where you live and whether you get community support behind you or not. Um, yeah, I would not recommend it. Even though we have a successful retail store, I still wouldn't recommend it. It's funny, a couple months ago, Kristen brought me something home. It was one of the new collectible figures that came out. They're a couple $100, and it had just it had just come out. And she brought one home, and she wrote out on this piece of paper, it was like $750,000 minus $329 for this figure, and then totaled it out, amount owed to Expert Media Group. And so it was down like $300 something out of the 750, and it was just comical. I mean, you get to the point where you have to just laugh at it. I mean, you get a decent tax deduction, but so what? Any other comments or questions before we wrap this up? I appreciate the chit chat. I love the interaction, hearing from you and all of that. If you have friends or family who are interested in collectibles, we do have a store online. NerdvanaOutpost.com. There's a lot to choose from. Actually, our online sales are really starting to pick up because we ship a lot to California, actually. But they found out that we have stuff that they can't find elsewhere at the price that we're selling it for. And so we have several regulars now that buy from us a couple times a month through the online store. And, onesies and twosies here and there, but anywho. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me here tonight. I really appreciate it. And like I mentioned earlier, if you want to join us for Income Reboot Quick Cash, that gets started tomorrow night at 6 p.m. And then Thursday at 6 p.m. as well. That'll be Module 2. Module 1 Wednesday, Module 2 Thursday. And then next week, Wednesday and Thursday as well. And we'll wrap that up next Thursday. So thank you, Liz. Appreciate it. So enjoy the rest of your night, everyone. I am going to go get ready to watch Curse of Oak Island. Maybe we'll even hot tub. Who knows? We did last night. But anyway, I'll see some of you tomorrow. And if you don't join us, that's fine. But I'll see you here next Tuesday. And thank you, Jared. We're definitely planning on coming to Idaho. I've actually never been to Idaho. And so never been to Montana either, believe it or not. I've been to like South Dakota and Nebraska, but that's about it. Never been to Washington State or Oregon or like that whole Pacific Northwest sort of kind of area. I've never really spent much time. Northern California. So not planning on going there in the wintertime, of course, but I definitely want to see it and photograph it. You guys have real mountains out in some of those areas compared to Pennsylvania here. So yeah, we're definitely heading West Coast, Liz. No doubt about it. Oh, cool. Well, thanks, Jared. I appreciate that. Or Brenda, whichever you are. Or both of you. Thank you. Yeah, I've never been to Yellowstone, and I really am looking forward to seeing it. I've been swapping out all of my camera gear, so I have newer stuff. Yeah, Yosemite's another place that I really, really want to go, and I just have never been. Kristen's been to a lot of them, but I haven't. My focus is Brenda. Okay, thank you. My focus has been more like I love Arizona. I love Texas, Florida, Georgia. Like I spent a lot of time in those areas. Like I love Texas and Tennessee. Of course, I guess I should mention Tennessee. I love North Carolina, the Emerald Coast in Florida. So that's kind of where I went a lot in my road trips and stuff. Plus, that's where a lot of the events that I spoke at were. But yeah, there's a lot to see. So anyway, thank you all very much again, and I will see you on the next one.